Singleness points to a coming bridegroom. A bridegroom, we find in 1 Corinthians 7 that St. Paul is speaking of the future. Remember last week, there's a word for this. You remember it? Eschatology. You can impress people at cocktail parties. Eschatology, it's the consideration of things at the end. From the Greek word eschaton, meaning last or end. Jesus talked constantly about the future, and now Paul is doing it too. We see in verse 26, Paul says, in view of the pending crisis, a little drama there. Verse 29, the appointed time has grown short. Verse 31, the present form of this world is passing away. Paul's looking to the future in order to understand singleness today. And Paul knows Jesus called himself a bridegroom. Do you remember that? It's one of his favorite images. He says, I am the bridegroom. And Paul then refers to his ministry as a ministry of betrothal. I help people meet the bridegroom. He tells the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians 11:2, I betrothed you, Corinthians, to one husband. Meaning it was just evangelism. Right? I share the good news, and you came into a relationship with the heavenly bridegroom. He's single, but he seems to be a matchmaker. Ministry for Paul is matchmaking, connecting people not to a human love, but to divine love, and a future where the eternal love of God will be real and tangible with a heavenly bridegroom. And so here, what he's arguing is there's something unique about singleness that points to that future. And I want you to hear this. There's something about the disciplined practice of chastity that's a witness. Okay? There's something about a disciplined practice of chastity that is a witness. As one writer put it, Christian singles are thus radical witnesses. Radical witnesses, you singles, to the resurrection. Why? Well, he says, they forfeit heirs. The only other possibility of their survival beyond the grave. They do this in the hope that one day all creation will be renewed. The Christian single makes no sense if the God of Jesus Christ is not living and true. See that? If Jesus isn't living and true, Christian singleness would make no sense. Why do it? Who would do it? So when you do it, it's a powerful witness. A witness of the resurrection. Because you believe that what is unfulfilled today and unfulfilling will ultimately and eternally be fulfilled tomorrow in the future with that bridegroom. Okay, so you say, well, wait a minute, George. What do we do with our sexual urges today? I know someone's thinking that question. So let's address it. It's a good question. Remember, the disciples are as surprised as we are at the teaching of Jesus in Matthew 19. And I want to tell you, the answer for both them and us is the same. And here it is in a word, self-control. Oh, I know. You were hoping for something better, weren't you? No, that's it. Self-control. See, 1 Corinthians 7 is often dangerously, I think, misunderstood. Here's the question people get wrong. Does Paul propose marriage as an antidote for sexual yearnings? No. Let's double check that. Let's look again at verse 9. He says, if they, okay, who are they? But if they are not practicing self-control, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to be aflame or to burn with passion. Now, you have to know in the context we learn, Paul is addressing the sexual sin of those who are already engaged. He's not talking about disconnected people. Fiancés, we would call them, and that's what our translation says. If you look at verse 36, look at verse 37, verse 38, fiancés. It's actually betrothal. We don't have this today, but in their culture, betrothal was legally binding. It was just marriage that hadn't yet been consummated, like Joseph and Mary. And Paul is saying, yes, if you're already engaged and you're failing to practice self-control, notice the present tense, if you are failing to practice self-control, then you might as well get married and make it official. He's very practical. As one scholar puts it, Paul is not suggesting that marriage is a remedy, a get-out-of-jail-free card for a person who's struggling with lust. That's Danny Treweek. By the way, I recommend her blogs, and this one in particular. If you take a picture of that, you'll find it on livingout.org. Danny's work is really good in general, but that article will help you. She's talking about these issues. Look, she says, marriage is not the solution to lust. Lust is wrong in singleness. Lust is wrong, newsflash, in marriage as well. And the solution to lust is self-control. Celibacy may not be a spiritual gift, but self-control most certainly is. It's a fruit of the Spirit. And when we don't practice self-control and fall into sexual sin, we will not find salvation in marriage. No, we will not. We will find salvation in the life and death of Jesus Christ and Him alone. Jesus forgives us. Jesus cleanses us from all unrighteousness. Jesus begins in us the work of new creation. And that's the solution to lust. You know, it's a strange thing to believe today, as so many of us seem to believe, that we need sex. That you can't be fulfilled without sex. That you can't be fully human without satisfying your sexual urges. But I would ask you, what would this say about people who can't have sex? The young, the elderly, those with challenges to mind and body. Are they less human? And what would this say about Jesus? Jesus is the fullest expression of humanity who ever walked the planet. And He never satisfied His sexual urges, and He felt them, but He didn't. And, by the way, He was single. But when you live as Jesus lived, when you let Him meet your needs for intimacy through the Holy Spirit and Christian community, when you understand, like Emily, that your yearning for sex is actually a yearning for God, and you can find all the sex you want, but you'll never find that satisfaction there. When you live as Jesus lived, when you look to the future for fulfillment and trust God for self-control today, you are pointing to Jesus in a singular way. See, singleness points to the coming bridegroom.